If we look at our lives, all of us, we will see that there's been some sort of divine guidance that has happened to us in all the major events in our life. Because it's all done divinely. The whole lot of it is divinely, not determined, but divinely directed. And everyone is divinely directed, only we have got into the habit of introducing another world that's not divine, of anxiety, stress, wanting, hoping, wishing. All those things get in the way of our ability to see that in all the big things in our life, we are divinely guided.
My friend, life is death and birth. My friend, life is the whole wide earth. My friend, life is sorrow and a tear. But my friend, life does not know fear. All the people would drag me down, but not while my friend life's around. My friend, life is change and pain, but that's all part of my friend's game. Play the game and it can be fun. Fight to win and the fun's all done. My friend, life is an outstretched hand. It's your friend too if you grab it, man.
My mother was a Pisces, soft-hearted, caring, loving and intuitive. Even for a mother, she loved me with an extraordinary devotion. Throughout her life, she put my welfare first. She never asked me for anything, and when sick would only tell me afterwards. My dad was a cheery man, never moody despite his financial and job difficulties, and was always whistling around the place. My dad, like my mum, was always good to me. I don't have any memory or sense of his ever having hurt me. On the day I was born, 1st August 1926, my mother had a vision, the only one she said she'd ever had. During the last hour of a long confinement, she saw the Virgin Mary, all white, standing by her bed. "Your son will be born behind a cloud," said the vision. "What do you mean?" said my mother. "He will be born dead." The nursing sister told her later that after the birth, the doctor said he couldn't do anything for the baby, but that they would work on the mother. My mother later said, knowing what I'd gone through, the sister said she couldn't bear to tell me my baby was dead. So she got hold of him, hung him up by the legs, swung him around and breathed down his throat. She put a drop of whiskey on his tongue with her finger, and he breathed. To me now, the vision symbolizes much more. I was indeed born behind a cloud or dead. I did not begin to live until I was 32. I did not know I was alive until I had passed out of the living dead into the immortal moment at the age of 38. Earthman, my death and birth man, knower of all but yourself, you are trapped in a terrible illusion that begins with the conclusion you are the body. It is not so, but you do not know any more than you can stay and go, because you do not know or go now. One day you will, and when, it will be now, not then. Man lives for knowledge. His life is the pursuit of knowledge. He is knowledge, born on an ache for knowledge, a struggling pain to know. Man's life quest for money or success, to own a house or to possess anything outside himself, is a striving not for the object but for the knowledge it is his. He can never own the thing, child, house, car or diamond ring. It is his body's. His sole gain is the knowledge, and that only to his satisfaction, itself a mere contraction of his fluctuating knowledge. In my day-to-day life at that time, I became aware of an absence, or a separation is a better word, a separation from this power which I call God. And that grew and grew in me until I would weep. I would weep at different times. I was working all this time, but I would have to go into the toilet and weep at my separation from this power, whatever it is. And that's how it started to show itself, through me knowing dreadful separation. And then that went on for several years. And sometimes I'd have this terrible pain in my stomach around that region, the solar plexus, and I'd even roll on the floor and cry because of the sheer separation from that which is indescribable. And I can't describe that to anyone. I mean, I'd be a nutcase to someone who's a psychologist perhaps, but who cares? That's how it happened, and I am what I am now as a result of that. I had this sense that I was dying, because that's the sense that you have. It's the old self that's dying, the old certainties, the old beliefs, the old opinions and all that are started to be seen to be useless, but very, very gradually. And so in the sense when all those things start to be dissolved, that's a sense of death. And so I knew I was dying in some way, but not physically.
Goodbye, old friend. This is the end. For you and me the path splits here. It once was fun to think we'd done, to win and lose, reject and choose. But as the youth discards the toy, dearest possession of the boy, we're through.
The simple fact was I could not get enough of God. And when the divine energy came in brief moments between my awful longing, I was radiant to myself. My desire for this indescribable nothingness was as insatiable as it seemed unnatural. For a long time I was literally God-mad. Yet it didn't affect my working life, mostly because it was a positive expression. I worked with my passion for God, in my passion for God. I did everything for God. I lived for God. One of the fundamental things that happened to me, which I've recorded in different places, was an image, a vision that I had when all this was going on in my early 30s. A vision that of a lady that I loved at the time, very most intensely. I loved her as God. And because love is God, truly intense love is realized as God. It has to be, because God is love and love is God. So I loved this woman with all that intensity that I had previously had with the intensity of my love of the unknown God. But the unknown God had come into this woman, not from her point of view, but from mine, and revealed itself as, I am love. And this vision, in this vision, she appeared in front of me, and she walked towards me. And as she walked towards me in the vision, something fell away from her. That was very important, that something fell away from her. And I immediately exclaimed, "It is the Lord." Because in those days I used to use the word Lord for God. "It is the Lord." And the vision replied, "Of course it is I. Every one is this fundamental thing behind the appearance." And I suspect that what fell away from her was her attachment to existence. In the vision I'm talking about, what had to fall away was the ignorance that we all have in us for the true Lord, the reality of what we are, to be revealed.
Bhagavati is a Sanskrit, ancient Hindu word. I'd read the word in passing, as you'd read the word goddess without dwelling on it. But Bhagavati and goddess are not just words. They stand for the living reality of woman, the essence behind or inside every woman, the original Eve of the West. There is one Bhagavati and 2.5 billion women. Every woman's longing is to realize this essence of herself, and every man desires her beyond all else.
So far this has been a revelation that the world is the same wherever you go. There is no escape in the world. I know it would not be different in New York, Bombay or London. There is the same ugliness of acquisition, of striving for things that don't matter. There is no escape anywhere, only in self-knowledge. What I do for all of us who love truth and want to know. I will bring the treasure back to the West, to here. I am going to teach in the Western countries, not here. This, I feel, is just a battleground, the final one.
I must go where the tall trees grow, where the giants stand alone. And there I will be made eternally free, for I am going home.
The loneliness, the confusion, the pain of psychological isolation that in my case preceded the realization of immortality was appalling. My separation from my woman, the Bhagavati, was the catalyst. The pain of this gradually purged me of the exclusive emotion of my love, my Bhagavati, my pain. I seemed to have an inexhaustible supply of this personal, possessive emotion. In such devastating pain of loss, there was no way that I could continue. The sense of imminent death, fear, hopelessness and being deserted, as well as the inner emotional spasms, continued for 8 weeks. There followed 3 days of astonishing confusion and uncertainty. I was adrift. I had no will. On the 3rd day, I realized I was dead. Shortly after, I realized immortality. Death was a condition of the mind, but it was not a fact. I had somehow passed through the condition, and now I was exultant, filled with the joy and knowledge that I was actually one with the life in nature, with every living creature and living thing. I was forever as life was. I was at peace. I was in no hurry to do anything or not to do anything. I was choiceless. I was free. When you realize that you're one with all life, then it follows from that that is immortality, because life is immortal. Life never disappears. Life forms disappear. The grass dies, the trees die, people die, but the life behind it doesn't die. And when you realize that you are one with all life, it endures, it's an enduring thing. That's what realization is. Realization is different to insights. Insights is a sort of passing thing, but realization endures, and you're never the same again after realization. So being one with all life, realizing that, gives you the knowledge of immortality, that you cannot die, and that no one and nothing can die. But every life form, a form of life, must die.
I must go where the four winds blow, where the spirit speaks to its own. For now I am free like the wind I must be, and help the others home.
I took it all with me, all my immortality. I took my manuscript, I took everything, which was me, over with me. And I went and lived in London, in a bed sit there while I hawked the manuscript around, and nobody was interested, and I got an agent then, but that didn't work either. And but all the time I was just living my life, which is the only thing you can do, is live your life according to your knowledge, according to what you do. So the whole thing about realization to me is that you are very ordinary. You might have had an extraordinary, you might have extraordinary knowledge, but your life is very ordinary, because if you go around posing as something, then you're just not, it's not realization. You're just an ordinary man with probably an extraordinary knowledge which comes to the fore when it is needed. And if it's not needed, you just do what you do. But you do things without anxiety anymore. You do things without stress and strain, as it were. because that's been put to rest by the knowledge that there is no death. For the main reason that we are anxious is because psychologically deep in our makeup we are afraid of death. I was only 39 and there was a lot more life ahead to live. Every truth realized, and any knowledge of a spiritual nature that anyone has, or professes to have, is tested and grounded in the events and circumstances of the ongoing life. This creates the troubling or testing situations. All spiritual knowledge, whether great or small, provides a certain detachment from events. This means not identifying with the pressure of what is happening. Thus, according to the depth of our spiritual knowledge, we are troubled less and suffer less.
Bhagavati, planted together by the eternal giver, two willow trees dipped and sipped at the river of life. Bhagavati, Bhagavati, neither in the shadow of the other, and yet both intermingled like wind that has met, each one alone, though eternally bound by the ground. Bhagavati, Bhagavati, when death the compassionate giver arrives, both fall in and die. Bhagavati, Bhagavati.
So my love of Julie was right on time. She was waiting for me in her own way. And so we came together. And her incredible love of God and her incredible love of me, because she saw me. She saw something inside of me which represented God to her, the God of love. Then we came together, and I received from that, of course, as we all do when we are loved. A young man, Julie's age, joined the sub-editor's desk at the London Evening News, where I was employed. His name was David White. Under his arm he had a copy of the biography of the 19th century Indian master Ramakrishna. We talked about philosophy. He said he was a poet as well as a journalist. I told him I had also written some poetry, and he asked to read it. After that we met and talked nearly every lunch hour for a couple of weeks. He floated into our bed-sitter regimen like a fine ray of sunlight. He was searching for the truth, and apparently found in Julie and I what he wanted. He began bringing his friends and his old university pals along to our bed-sit to hear my teaching. They in turn introduced their friends, and there was seldom a night that someone didn't arrive. Well, one of the great climacterics in my life was the realization of what I call the transcendental. The transcendental, the best I can describe these things, is God, what I would call, I'm only calling it this to give an illustration, what I would call a God outside the world, outside existence. Now I've already spoken of the Lord, which is God immanent, immanent meaning inside the body, in existence. So the Lord is God in existence. The transcendental God is not in existence, is out of existence, and yet I must not convey the idea that there's two gods. There's only one God. The Lord is just an aspect in existence of the one God. So, due to the influence of a man called John Hart in London, I was given the transcendental realization, which in itself I cannot describe except that it transcends the senses and communicates a knowledge which no doubt has been used by the intelligence that's been imparted to me in my teaching. And he communicated this. He was there long enough to give me this greatest of gifts, which can only be, you've got to have a trigger in the external world, as I've said. And John was the trigger, and also the power that came through him from the intelligence of the transcendent came through him and affected me and changed my life and my whole knowledge and everything over a period of 3 weeks. This happened. During the previous weeks, in my certainty and arrogant disdain, I had often made statements like, "Who will teach the teacher?" and "Show me a man who knows more than I." Here he was. How I recognized him was when he started to speak of things that I had no knowledge of, no personal experience of, or no knowledge of. And I knew that he knew far more than I knew. Now it is only intelligence that if you meet someone, especially in the truth I'd say, who knows far more than you do and is demonstrated, then you say, "Please, teach me. I will obey." And that's what happened, and he graciously taught me.
There is only one truth, and that truth is the origins of mankind's existence, your existence. I am going to tell you that truth. But I must warn you, it is almost impossible to tell the truth in this existence. First, because the truth is unacceptable. Second, because it is unbelievable. By unacceptable, I mean it will be automatically rejected without profound reflection. By unbelievable, that it will be regarded as fiction. In both cases, the truth will fail to trigger the awakening, the fundamental change that should follow the hearing or reading of such extraordinary information. And the world will go on asking, "What is truth?" and never stopping to listen for the answer. However, among a very small number of the Earth's population at this time, the truth will have a profound effect, which is the virtue in telling it. And the seed of it will grow in the human subconscious, to become in generations ahead the root of a more enlightened struggle by man to overcome his ignorance by realizing the truth of himself.
At times there was almost a avuncular feeling as we sat round a fire, and Barry would put a new piece of log onto the fire, and it was very, in the wintry days. I think I was meeting the source of an energy which was a burning, penetrating sense of truth that was a match for the negatives that I could find in myself. And I think nowhere else have I encountered that wonderful burning out energy, which is the energy of pure love, really, that will get rid of the other energy that's full of fear and ignorance.
I first came across or heard of Barry Long when I was living in London, and a friend of mine was going to see him in Highgate and came back with tales of this provocative figure who was having quite an influence on his life at the time. I remember reading the meditation book, and that had an extraordinary effect on me. I read the book almost in one session, and I put it down, and I had the experience of not having any mind or any thought for the first time in my life. It all just stopped. I put the book down and it just stopped. I mean, it's still with me. There was just the buses going by, it was London, the sounds in the street, and just an utter absence in me.
Well, Julie, as she had such a great impact on my life, when I met her and our life together, her approaching death had a great impact on my life, of course. It was part of it. There's nothing like the approach of death to make things very, very real. And so it had a great impact on me as we tried to save her. Of course, she died from breast cancer at the age of, I think it was 40. And I served and did best I could to save her. But her actual death was magnificent to me, because during that time I was doing a course of monthly meetings, and one of the meetings was called Immortalizing Your Life. Immortalizing Your Love. And which meant that you're one. If you immortalize the love that you have with a woman, talking from man's point of view, and you both immortalize your love, then it is immortal. That love is immortal. I hadn't had that experience because I don't know where a lot of this knowledge comes from. I know now where it comes from, but I didn't know then where it came from. I could speak about immortalizing your love. Because what I was doing, I was living that. Julie and I were living the immortalizing of our love, which was the recognition of each other all the time. I don't know, I forget what I said at the time about that. So we'd immortalized our love. Now that was demonstrated to me the night that she died. She just finished breathing, and I'd been weeping at the bedside, and the nuns at the hospice where she was came in and said, offered me a cup of tea in the next room. So I went into the next room to have the cup of tea. And suddenly I became aware that all the weeping had stopped. there was no more grief in me. It was all gone. And in place of that was a wondrous knowledge that Julie had entered me. I don't think there's anything more wondrous than that. The love of Julie, when Julie died and that love entered me, is now goes forward, and here it is in Sarah and I. Now what it was before, it was in Julie. It was the love that entered me from God when I was 30. So you see, love travels through all the bodies and then expresses itself at different stages, and then is still working. It's the same love of God, which is now in our life together now, and this is everybody's life. There's no different loves. It's always the one love coming through the different bodies, and it is the love of God. It's the love of the unknown, the indescribable, which is what love is. Although it comes in manifested bodies, and it's very difficult for us here to see that it is the one love, always evolving, always getting more experience, and through that experience becoming more real in some way that this living is about. As I've spoken about what woman represented to me, that she represented God to me, I was imbued with a sense that I was doing something. Not that I was doing something, but that something was being done in my loving of woman. And not only in my loving of woman, but in my teaching, which was based on the love of woman. So therefore, that became a profound doing. And the teaching was a profound doing to bring about that which I'd already realized, that woman, the female principle, was God. And so you can't separate that from my whole life, in which I endeavored to bring the female principle present in every woman that I loved, and not only the women that I loved, but through my books and tapes and videos, I endeavored to communicate to her.
My deepest longing is to be with thee, to never to be apart from thee, to sink myself into thee and know thy sweetness in every part of me. O God, only then will I know ecstasy and be at peace.
There's no doubt that I'm in the last stages of the process of living. Not the final stage, apparently, but that's where I am. Now, I do not fear this physical death, because I know that I am life and that I am one with all life. So while there is life, I cannot die. And even in death, it is my perception or knowledge that life still is. So I don't have this fear, which I understand in people who haven't had such knowledge revealed to them. I understand the fear of death if it's there. But I think at the time of death, there's no fear.
My friend, life is death and birth. My friend, life is the whole wide earth. My friend, life is sorrow and a tear. But my friend, life does not know fear. All the people would drag me down, but not while my friend life's around. My friend, life is change and pain, but that's all part of my friend's game. Play the game and it can be fun. Fight to win and the fun's all done. My friend, life is an outstretched hand. It's your friend too if you grab it, man.
Adios, adios, adios. That's all I hear you say. Adios, adios, adios. You want to run away.
The most pleasurable thing in my life is to know that I am one, apart from my silly projection here, which is pretty silly, to know that I am one with that great intelligence that is behind it all. To know that every second of my life I know that. And that's a wonderful thing. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to sing when I'm washing up, like many people do. But I sing with the knowledge and the peace inside that is untroubled.
My friend, life is death and birth. My friend, life is the whole wide earth. My friend, life is sorrow and a tear. But my friend, life does not know fear. All the people would drag me down, but not while my friend life's around. My friend, life is change and pain, but that's all part of my friend's game. Play the game and it can be fun. Fight to win and the fun's all done. My friend, life is an outstretched hand. He's your